Manchester City just lost their best player, and Pep Guardiola never saw the ending coming. The reigning Ballon d'Or winner, the World Cup winning captain of Spain, walking away, and not to just anyone. Rodri is joining Barcelona, £65 million, 4 years. And the way this deal actually came together, behind Real Madrid's back, is even crazier than the headline. Multiple major outlets are confirming the same number within hours of each other. When that many independent, credible sources converge on one figure this fast, a deal isn't a rumor anymore. It's already done in every way that matters. What's left is paperwork. So let's actually break down how this happened, because the road here was nowhere near as simple as the headline makes it look. At the start of August, this barely looked like a contest. Rodri had 1 year left on his Manchester City contract, and Real Madrid appeared to be the clear frontrunner, ready to move with an offer in the region of £50 million. Spanish captain, World Cup winner, a boyhood connection to the country. On paper, it looked like a formality. Most people assumed this transfer saga would be over within days, with Rodri pulling on the white shirt of Real Madrid before September. Then Barcelona entered the race. And once Rodri's name got linked to Hansi Flick's project, the entire tone of the transfer window shifted. City did not make this easy. Their valuation was reported as high as 80, even €100 million, a figure clearly designed to discourage any club from even opening talks. This wasn't a club desperate to sell. This was a club trying to make the price so uncomfortable that suitors would simply walk away. Barcelona didn't walk away. Their opening offer landed around $50 million. Rejected. Their second bid crept towards $65 million. Rejected again. A third package, worth roughly $70 million with add-ons, still wasn't enough to move City off their position. 3 rounds of negotiation, 3 rejections, and still, Barcelona kept coming back to the table. Through every single round of rejections, though, one thing never changed. Rodri wanted Barcelona. Reports describe Hansi Flick personally calling him to sell the sporting project directly, player to manager, no intermediaries, no agents relaying messages back and forth. Just a conversation about what Rodri's role would look like in that Barcelona midfield, and what kind of football he'd be playing for the next 4 years. And by every account, that conversation is what tipped the scales. The player quietly signaled that his preference had shifted away from Madrid entirely. And once that happened, Real Madrid's £50 million valuation became almost irrelevant. It didn't matter what Madrid were willing to pay if the player himself had already made his decision. When a player has already made up his mind, the transfer fee stops being the real obstacle. It just becomes a matter of time. And that's exactly what played out here. City could hold the price as high as they wanted. Eventually, with the player pushing for the move and refusing to sign a contract extension, the numbers were always going to land somewhere both sides could accept. And now, the number is final. £65.4 million. 4 years. Done. Put that fee into context for a second, because I think a lot of people are going to undersell exactly how good this business is for Barcelona. This is a player who captained Spain to a World Cup. He currently holds the Ballon d'Or. He's been arguably the best defensive midfielder on the entire planet for the better part of half a decade. Let that sink in for a second. City paid a club record fee to sign him back in 2019, and he repaid that investment many times over, close to 300 appearances, 12 major honors, 4 Premier League titles, and a Champions League among them. 7 seasons at the very top of English football, as the metronome in the middle of the pitch for one of the most dominant sides the Premier League has ever seen. Set that resume against what other clubs are paying this summer for unproven 20-year-olds who haven't won a single trophy yet. £65 million for a Ballon d'Or winner with silverware already in hand isn't a risk. It's one of the smartest pieces of business in Europe this window. Clubs are routinely spending 80, 90, even over 100 million on potential. Barcelona just spent significantly less than that on a proven, decorated, prime-age superstar. There's really no argument that this is bad value. Unsurprisingly, the reaction out of Madrid has been less than gracious, with some voices framing this as a player simply chasing money. Look at the actual circumstances, though. City had 1 year left on his contract and were said to want him to sign an extension. They didn't want to lose him. This wasn't a club trying to offload a player they'd fallen out of love with. This was a club that valued him enormously and still couldn't convince him to stay. Instead of forcing an unhappy final season out of a player who had given the club 7 years of service, they respected his decision. That is not a club cashing in. That's a footballer choosing his next chapter, and a club handling that choice with a level of professionalism that honestly deserves more credit than it's getting. Now, it's worth being precise here. There is still paperwork, medicals, and the usual administrative process that comes with a transfer of this size. Deals of this scale are routinely agreed in principle days or even weeks before the official unveiling happens. Fans have seen this pattern before. An agreement in principle leaks out, and then there's a stretch of nervous waiting while lawyers and clubs finalize every last clause. Independent confirmation at this scale is rare, though. Multiple credible outlets reporting the same fee, the same contract length, and the same stance from both clubs isn't speculation. It's a deal in its final administrative stage. When this many separate, competing news organizations land on identical numbers within hours of each other, that's not coincidence. That's confirmation. Social media has, predictably, exploded. Barcelona supporters have been flooding timelines with old highlight reels, mock-up shirt designs, and lineup graphics slotting Rodri straight into a starting 11. Manchester City fans, on the other hand, are split. Plenty of gratitude for 7 years of service, mixed with genuine frustration that a player this important is walking out the door with a year still left on his deal. And Real Madrid fans are, understandably, the loudest of all right now, watching a target they thought was theirs end up in the shirt of their fiercest rival instead. That kind of reaction tells you everything about the size of this move. Transfers involving squad players come and go without much noise. Transfers involving a reigning Ballon d'Or winner at a club with this much history do not. Let's talk tactics for a second, because this is where the deal gets genuinely exciting for anyone who actually watches the football rather than just the headlines. Rodri's game has never been about flash. It's about control, winning the ball back cleanly, recycling possession under pressure, and dictating the tempo of a match almost invisibly, the way the best holding midfielders always do. Slot that skill set in front of a Barcelona backline, behind a midfield already stacked with technical, forward-thinking players, and you get a team that can control matches from start to finish rather than just bursts of it. It also solves a very specific defensive problem that's followed this Barcelona side for a few seasons now: a lack of a true shield in front of the defense, someone who can break up transitions before they become dangerous. Add Rodri to that equation, and suddenly the entire structure of the team looks different, not just stronger in one position, but more balanced as a whole unit. For Barcelona, this reshapes the midfield entirely. Pairing Rodri's positional discipline and ball-winning ability with the creativity already on that roster changes how Flick can set his team up tactically. Suddenly, Barcelona have a genuine defensive anchor in front of the back line, someone who can break up opposition attacks, recycle possession under pressure, and free up the more advanced midfielders to focus purely on creating. That's the exact profile that's been missing from Barcelona's squad for years. Real Madrid, meanwhile, faces the opposite story. One of their top defensive midfield targets has walked straight into the arms of their fiercest rival. And it's not just about losing a transfer target, it's about handing your biggest domestic rival one of the best midfielders in world football, for free, essentially, in terms of what it costs Real Madrid's ambitions. That's a psychological blow as much as a footballing one. This is more than one transfer. It's a shift in the balance of power in Spanish football, right before the season begins. Every title race in La Liga over the past decade has come down to fine margins. A handful of points, a handful of key moments. Adding a Ballon d'Or winner to your midfield in the middle of that kind of rivalry doesn't just improve one team. It tilts the entire balance of the league. And there's a bigger picture here too, beyond just this one season. Barcelona have been rebuilding for years, trying to return to the level that made them the most feared club in world football. Bringing in proven winners, players who already know what it takes to lift major trophies, is exactly the kind of signing that accelerates a rebuild instead of prolonging it. Rodri isn't a project. He's not a gamble on potential. He's a finished product walking straight into a starting 11 that badly needed exactly what he offers. Step back from the numbers for a moment. This is a player who came through the Spanish system, captained his country to a World Cup, and became the best midfielder on the planet. Now he's walking into one of the most storied clubs in football, at the peak of his powers, with every reason to want to prove he can dominate a different league in a different shirt. A few years ago, this transfer would have sounded unrealistic. Rodri at Barcelona felt like the kind of move fans dream up in hypothetical lineups, not something that actually happens in real life. Now, it's real. And preseason just got a lot more interesting. Think about what this means heading into the new campaign. Barcelona walk into the season with arguably the strongest midfield in Europe. Real Madrid walk in having watched their rivals solve a problem position with one of the best players alive. And Manchester City walk in having to replace a player who was, for the better part of a decade, the single most important piece of their entire system. 3 clubs, 3 completely different realities, all shaped by one conversation between a manager and a player who decided, quietly and firmly, exactly where he wanted his career to go next. Subscribe for the official confirmation the moment it drops. Because when the photos with the shirt and the scarf finally land, you know this channel will have it first.